Welcome, listeners, to the inaugural episode of StackGen Feature Fridays. I'm your host, Rin Oliver, Technical Content Marketing Manager at StackGen. And today, we're kicking off this exciting series with a deep dive into a game changing concept that's transforming the way we think about cloud infrastructure, cloud to code. In today's episode, we're going to explore what cloud to code really means, why it's becoming a crucial tool for modern DevOps and engineering teams, and how it's poised to revolutionize cloud infrastructure management. Whether you're managing small scale environments or handling complex cloud architecture, this shift is set to make your workflows more agile, efficient, and scalable. So buckle up, because we're about to dive into why cloud to code isn't just a buzzword, it's the future of cloud management. So let's get started. I'm going to introduce my guests here. Who are you and what are your roles here at StackGen? I've got two wonderful folks here, and I will let them introduce themselves.
Sounds good. I can go first. My name is Arunav. I'm the founding sales engineer here at StackGen. So I primarily work with our customers to help get them implemented and just start figuring out how they can actually modernize their current IC practices by using a platform like ours.
All right, I'll go next. Hey, folks, my name is Dharani. I'm the principal product manager at StackGen. I previously launched cloud products during my roles at AWS and HashiCorp. I'm particularly excited about this episode where we are going to talk about cloud to code because it touches upon an important problem that the whole industry is only scratching the surface. Back to you, Rin.
Exactly. So, Dharani, what does cloud to code mean? Why is it so critical in modern cloud environments? Like you said, why does it matter? Why is it important?
Yeah, sure, I'll take that, Rin. So, if you think about it, most companies or many companies are pretty much software companies, right? Like everybody has a web application, if you think about it. Apps like web applications and data processing and many others, they're just growing in user base, be it a smaller customer or be it a mid-sized company or a very mature enterprise. They have so many applications like which have its own life cycle and which have its own user base growing. But to support this user growth within each of the applications, there is something that has to be done. All these applications run somewhere, which is infrastructure, typically provided by cloud providers like AWS or Azure or GCP and so on and so forth. That's where cloud to code comes into picture. As these user base grows, the organizations or our customers are grappling with challenges like, hey, I want to expand to another region, mainly because like our users are global. They need to be served better with lower latencies. That's something commonly heard. Also, regulations. I want to expand regions to meet the customers really where they are. So, what do you do now? You are in a cloud. You want to basically expand your infrastructure to the same cloud. In this case, probably for region expansion, but still, it's something you want to solve it, right? Like, how do you do that? That's where a solution like cloud to code comes into picture. I gave a simple example of moving within the cloud, but we also have customers who actually want to move between cloud providers too. There are examples like we find another cloud provider to provide us the velocity and governance for certain workloads. So we want to move between like where we are today and offer another version in a different cloud, public cloud altogether, right? Like, so how do you do that? That's another use case for cloud to code.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. That's perfect. And here at StackGen, what's our vision, for overall simplifying cloud management and enabling teams to, like you said, scale faster and focus more on product innovation?
I think, like I said during my intro, right, like we're still scratching the surface as an industry. That's where at StackGen we believe we can radically shift the whole cloud to code and a few other problems that we're tackling right away. Wherein we want to automate things for our customers. When I say customers, specifically the personas around platform engineering and DevOps teams, they grapple with so many manually written scripts today and basically they're overwhelmed, right? Like if you take any project like migration, it takes like anywhere from months to like sometimes even a year or more. So we want to basically make that a less burdensome journey for our DevOps partners and customers by simplifying cloud management with automated innovation. And that's sort of our vision. So faster time to market for the business by the way of we enabling them, as well as reducing the errors and some of the other nuances as our customers go through this cloud to code journey or infrastructure migration journey.
Absolutely. I agree completely. I think you're absolutely right. Arunav, why do you feel like cloud to code is like such a priority? How does it fit in overall to StackGen's strategy for cloud infrastructure management? Like, for example, say I'm a DevOps engineer migrating to Terraform for the first time. I've got an existing cloud footprint. How does cloud to code simplify that process?
In general across the industry, like a very common point of concern that we hear from folks is, hey, we are not using infrastructure as code in some capacity, and we need to be. Most often that's Terraform or OpenTofu. The initial process of moving into something like Terraform or any IAC is actually it's very difficult, right? Because if you have existing cloud resources, you can't just create a Terraform replication of that, because when you try to start using it, Terraform doesn't know about what already exists inside your environment. While there are ways to, sort of like manually import all of those things into your Terraform state file, it's just not really scalable when you have massive environments. That pain point of not being able to move into IAC despite wanting to is what we're trying to solve with something like Cloud to Code. Cloud to Code is simplifying that process because it's not just skipping to the step where we generate the Terraform IAC script. We're also synthesizing the Terraform state. So now, the very first time that you actually try to start using the Terraform, it already knows about everything that you've already deployed and provisioned. That is the main thing that I think makes this a high priority for us, which is that it really removes that initial barrier to entry for our customers to actually start using IAC everywhere that they actually want to use it. And once they start using IAC, obviously, like there's going to be just operational efficiency gains all over the place, right? Like once you have IAC, now you can have repeatable and on-demand infrastructure spinouts versus having to file a ticket and rely on an ops team to maybe handle something for you. All sorts of velocity gains come very shortly after like switching things over to IAC.
Definitely, that's you're absolutely true. That's yeah, having to handle things is really challenging. I've seen places where the timeline to get over to the cloud is a year or more, depending on what industry you're in. I've seen those roadmaps go where they're 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, or I've been where one variable changes and the ops team has to handle the entire Terraform structure over again because they changed a singular variable. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Or it becomes like a little mix where, we had a executive mandate to switch to infrastructure as code. We just switched a few critical apps, their infrastructure over, but for everything else, that would have been, a huge pain. We just kind of called it a day and, just let that sleeping dog lie.
Exactly. Just left the just move away, leave the rest. Yep. Exactly. So, Dharani, how does Cloud to Code specifically benefit those DevOps teams? Like, what specific challenges does it address and for improving workflow efficiency in your mind? What do you feel that the biggest benefits are?
I think the way in which we at StackGen have defined the product and the customer experience around it, touches upon like the critical phase. I'm going to lay it down into pieces so that our audiences can digest it rather. Everything begins with discovery, right? Like customers have to know what they have in their current club. Like that's where we start. We have a beautiful topology view wherein we can quickly show our customers, predominantly DevOps users, thousands of resources that they already have, right? Many of our customers have actually been surprised that, like, hey, we did not know that like we have grown this much or this big because they have been enabling developers who actually like rapidly build and deploy stuff in the club. That's the first phase. Our workflow enables discovery. And the next phase pretty much is how Arunav explained, right? Like the whole IAC creation is an important problem. And we do that in an automated way, like I briefly mentioned at the beginning. But the key here to understand is the automation that we are creating here has to be higher fidelity. It's no surprises there. It has machine learning and deterministic rules, but the fidelity has to be higher. So we have made the right calls from a product creation and engineering perspective to meet those high standards. That's sort of the second phase, right? IAC creation and automation. We do support multiple cloud providers there from a source and destination perspective. Could have like your resources in AWS, EC2, or your underlying VPC and subnets, and you wanted to move it on to a Azure based concept like with VNets and the networking guardrails around it. You can definitely do that with StackGen. I don't know, alluded to, right? Like there are executive mandates around IAC being driven as a process around the industry, which is true, right? Like, and it does help, for lack of a better word, like to be a neutral interface, right, for DevOps teams to exchange and the infrastructure. So we also create IAC to be the source of truth on whatever we are doing. So that's sort of the second phase, right? IAC creation as we move between clouds. And thirdly, definitely not the least, right? Like, it doesn't stop there. You got to like onboard developers and basically bring them onto this train or journey. How do you do that? You need to have like the relevant Git integration. That's where you meet the developers where they are. So I'll take a simple example wherein like we had a large customer in mobile advertisement. Velocity matters to them. So what they did is uploaded, or basically they did the module creation from through us and uploaded the published the modules for the developers to use it. And how does it help the whole Git integrations? It puts in place the developers to use only the relevant modules for so many of the upcoming projects. So that's sort of the third phase, right? The third part to the solution. So that's how we are thinking about it. Then again, I want to like sum it up with a mental model, right? Like, let's say you want to box and ship an important material or like a jewel to a destination, right? How do you do that? You wrap it up. That's the first phase, right? In a small box. But then to reach the destination, you got to like onboard it to a train, push that into a train, right? That's what we give you through the automated IAC. And that train has to go to the destination, right? It needs to have rails on it. Otherwise, it's going to drift and like fall apart. That's our whole story or solution around providing guardrails through automation. And we want like more and more of those smaller shipments from developers to reach the destination in fine quality and reliability. That's sort of our goal with what we delivered with Cloud to Code.
I agree completely. So, all right, now, my friend, let's say, I'm a developer that's working real hard in my, making my infrastructure better. What's that going to look like, say, with IAC versus without IAC? What am I looking at if I'm comparing and contrasting those two things and how it makes my life better or doesn't?
Yeah, so with IAC, right, infrastructure as code just means everything's codified, which means everything is now repeatable, right? So with IAC, like piggybacking off what Dharani was mentioning, is we can now have infrastructure templates that are always going to spin up something I need, and sort of like, for example, like a sandbox testing environment in the exact same way. And because it's all codified, I don't necessarily need to bug someone to help bring it up, right? Like, this was previously a manual process where you had to, hit up an ops team and then, wait a week for them to get to your ticket, and then they'll spin up an environment for you. And hopefully that was the kind of environment that you needed. So with IAC, we see some general development speed ups within the SDLC. IAC alone, though, does not mean that it's easier to deal with infrastructure, right? We see a lot of times that, I think folks can mix up, hey, our org is switching to IAC, it's going to make dealing with infrastructure easier. Not necessarily, right? IAC means now devs need to learn that IAC framework. If no one knows Terraform, all of a sudden everyone's behind. Whereas previously, you could do some cowboy deployments on the AWS console and probably just get 80% of the way for what you needed. It'll be totally unsecured, but you'll have your sandbox environment. So that's an area that still warrants caution when switching to IAC, right? I think the developer experience of actually interacting with it needs to be kept in mind. Otherwise, you can end up in a situation where we have IAC, but there is still going to be just very deep knowledge silos of just like a few folks who know how to interact with it well, and then you're back to the same original problem of it's as if you're back with an ops team who has to just manage things through IAC for you.
Exactly, because now you're not, you've solved the whole. I have to wait 10 days for this service now ticket to get approved. I have to wait 5 days for change management to approve this change. But then you're stuck having, ops having to do something, but it's IAC is supposed to be better, but then it's not. Exactly. So, overall, Dharani, how would you feel that cloud to code fits into the overall shift towards automation and cloud infrastructure, like as a whole?
Cloud to code sits in the important phase of the overall cloud journey, right? It touches upon the phase where you're actually like your specific application is going prime time. That's sort of the inflection point phase that the cloud to code touches upon. There are multiple phases or maturity phases in an application lifecycle, right? Initially, you have like developers like prototyping, and then like you'd have basically doing a product market fit, right? Like wherein product leaders and executives and developers jointly like understand their customers and users and refine the features. And then comes the phase wherein once the product market fit is established, you want to actually expand the user growth, providing or reaching to more and more users with that curated version of your product that's very relevant globally, right? I think that's where cloud to code really hits it. And that's the phase. So if you're a startup or you could be a large company, in both cases, you would have assets that have like recently hit or maybe already hit like product market fit. That's where cloud to code really comes into picture. You're better off actually using an automated tool like this and expanding user growth so that you don't leave money on the table from a business perspective. At the same time, you're actually doing something good for your customer base by providing them the best in class governance and regional capabilities, right? So that's where it fits into the overall picture into your question.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I agree completely. Absolutely. In terms of how does automation fit into that? How would you feel that Cloud to Code supports that methodology and helps teams, reduce manual work and scale more efficiently?
I might have previously explained or alluded, right? The time to completing the project or time to doing a region expansion or time to expanding to another cloud which provides better capability, right? Like than your existing cloud, right? These are all super critical, right? Like, you have a choice of like running that migration project for a year with no automation, or you have a choice of basically using a tool like StackGen and accomplishing that in a matter of days to weeks, right? With the assistance that we provide from the tooling. So I think that time to market of these products that have already in their product market fit maturity phase is crucial, right? And that's what we provide. And as a business, like including ourselves, right? Like we are always thinking about survival and meeting the customers where they are, and it needs to help both parties as a business as well as the customers to go to market sooner. I think that's where automation shines really here, right? And of course, not without your teams who are the subject matter experts, but we see a nice hybrid mode here, right? Like working with StackGen.
Absolutely. And I'm going to add this for both of you. I will have Arunav go first. Overall, you've been here at StackGen much longer than I have. So I would say, from a StackGen perspective, as a part of your role especially, how do you see this shift in the broader context of cloud technology and the importance of being at the forefront of the change in cloud to code and the industry as a whole, my friend?
Yeah, so I think right now we're seeing that IAC has a lot of industry appeal right now. And I think the most common patterns once folks are shifting into using IAC is their platform engineering teams slash DevOps teams are setting up paved paths for certain infrastructure environments for their dev teams to have access to. Now, these paved paths are designed to get the job done extremely well for 80% of the app team's use cases, but for the remaining 20% where they don't fit nicely, they have to go back to, having some sort of custom white glove infrastructure hand rolling service from like a central team, or they just might not be able to get access to the kind of infrastructure that they need. And where I think the future is headed is going from this kind of rigid paved path infrastructure approach to a more app centric infrastructure approach where the infrastructure can be determined based on the requirements of the application. And if this happens in a fully automated way, because we can scan the app code base itself, that's probably the most efficient way for this, right? And if we can do that while still maintaining all the guardrails that are the reason why we have pathways for infra today, there's no real drawbacks to that approach. So that's just one of the ways that I think the industry is going to be evolving into.
I agree completely. Dharani, did you have anything to add on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to double click on what Arunav said, right? I know today we spoke a lot about cloud to code as a acute problem that we are solving with StackGen's recent launch, right? I think to double click on what Arunav said, the ultimate sort of evolution that we see is source to code, right? Like as we call it, you have your source code, and StackGen has another capability which can actually scan the code and provide infrastructure recommendations from the source. Customers can either use it right away or fine tune it with our guardrails and launch. That's sort of the evolution that we expect to see, right? Like which is applicable for early stage applications too. Today we spoke a lot about applications which is kind of at the inflection point around the product market fit, but this is even more broadly applicable to early applications too. The developer velocity as well is another point I want to touch upon. It's sort of a golden age to be in, right? Like where AI is kind of transforming like how we code and how we build applications. All of that is great, but can the infrastructure and the deployment and the recommendations catch up to what the builders or developers can build? That's sort of the question that we got to solve sooner, right? And that's where a platform like StackGen is trying to make bold steps forward.
Absolutely. And now that we've discussed, the future of cloud code and the future of this industry as a whole, Dharani, I'd love to get your thoughts on, what are some upcoming features and product innovations that we here at StackGen are working on to enhance cloud code functionality?
You'll see us progress and innovate around the three pillars, right? Like discovery is one, like I previously mentioned, discovering your resources, right? We're going a lot more deeper in the upcoming releases, wherein we want to support 100 plus or hundreds of resources in AWS and also Azure. There are customers who use a lot more managed services within each of these cloud providers, right? Like not only your classic network compute and storage is not enough, right? Like you got to meet customers where they are, right? Like they've grown so much to use like so many of the managed services out there, right? So that's an area where you would see us innovate, supporting more resources and enabling customers to discover them more like day zero. But that's not enough, obviously. Like we want to solve bigger problems. There is also the whole governance aspect to it, right? Like we want to help our customers to understand drips better, which is classically spoken a lot in the IAC world, wherein you have a bunch of teams which actually are using more resources or are making more updates than the guardrails set by the platform teams. We want to help our customers with that as well. That's up and coming, and you'll see us innovating more around the integrations. Actually, I touched upon Azure and AWS. You'll see us do more with GCP as well, and CO Cloud, as well as on the Git side, we're planning a lot more integrations with GitHub and GitLab and Bitbucket. Yeah, from an enforcement perspective.
That's fantastic. As a proponent of things like GitHub Actions, I love this for us. That's great.
Forgot to add the most important one. Horizontally across all these innovations, there is AI and machine learning, which will be used in a very practical way to help our DevOps and platform engineering teams.
That's fantastic. Arunav, I was wondering, overall, how would you feel that things like infrastructure from code and taking application-centric infrastructure approaches has, improved the industry as a whole, and where do you think it's going to go from here?
Frankly, I don't think it's improved the industry enough yet. I think it hasn't really picked up. It hasn't really picked up enough steam outside of like a few pioneers who are, who are adopting it, but like not in any like major way. Where I think it's going to impact the industry when it does reach adoption is the capability for developer self-service and the capability for just dynamically spinning up cloud infrastructure in ways that folks have traditionally had to turn away from hyperscalers like AWS and gone towards Heroku or Vercel or other just give me infra type of platforms, right? If we can get that kind of capability but still be on the hyperscaler like major cloud providers, I think that's where the benefits of infrastructure from code and app centric info are really going to help us speed things up.
I agree completely. And before I wrap this up, I wondered if you two have any closing thoughts. I'd love to hear from you before I do our little outro spiel here.
I'll add one more call out. The listeners are free to try our platform, StackGen platform, and please do give it a try on a good Friday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, whichever works for you, and please do share your feedback.
Thank you so much. That wraps up today's episode of StackGen's Feature Fridays. To recap, we've explored the incredible impact cloud code is having on cloud infrastructure management, helping streamline process and improve the developer experience, increasing efficiency across the board. Overall, this is really just the beginning of a transformative journey. I'd like to really thank my awesome guests, Arunav and Dharani, for sharing their invaluable insights and experiences with us today. Your expertise is really awesome, and I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. Please don't forget to stay tuned for more exciting updates and new episodes of StackGen Feature Fridays. We've got a lot more to share with you, so keep listening. Until next time, take care and keep innovating, everyone.